Welcome to another episode of The Evaluation Couch, the podcast where we talk about career growth and the field of evaluation. I'm your host, Maria Montenegro.
Many people believe that you need 8 to 10 years of experience to land senior evaluation roles. And I was able to land a management role in under 4 years. In this episode, I'm going to share with you how I fast-tracked my evaluation career and how you can do the same. If you've ever believed you just need more years of experience or you just need to hit that 10-year mark in order for your career to give you what you want, then this episode is for you. For those that don't know me that well, I'm an immigrant to Canada, I'm a visible minority woman, and I actually learned about evaluation as a field after I completed my master's studies in one of my first jobs. From there, I went from not even knowing that this was a career option to implementing, designing, hiring for, and managing my own evaluation and research team in a large health authority in Canada. And one thing I want to get out of the way before I get started on this episode is that I don't think I'm a unicorn. Yes, I think I'm a strong evaluator and I've worked really hard to be in the place where I am. But I think if this was possible for me, it is definitely possible for many of the other talented evaluators that I know and that I support. Many evaluators think that career growth in evaluation is a linear thing, and that the more years of experience you have and the more training you get, the more your career is going to grow in terms of responsibility, in terms of scope, compensation, and satisfaction. But what actually happens for many people is that they start growing earlier in their career as they have more years of experience, as they train and get more education on evaluation, and then they reach a point where their career stagnates. After this point, regardless of how many more years of work experience they have and how much more training and professional development they do, they don't necessarily see the growth that they want or that they think they deserve. This happens to many evaluators, and in order to get back onto that growth trajectory, there's actually other things that are required. This belief that you need more years of experience and more training to grow in your career is what I call the career growth fallacy. And it is a lie. For most people, that's not what you observe. And I am not the only example of why education and training necessarily are the only things that contribute to growth. Unfortunately, there's no data sets or research projects that I have found that map out years of experience, training, and seniority level in our field. But what you can do is reflect on how many times you have met evaluators that have decades of experience that are very talented, and they're not in management or senior positions necessarily, or they're not directing their full evaluation unit. And you can probably also reflect on the fact of how many young evaluators you know that are actually leading whole evaluation units, that are doing amazing, impactful work, that are even having their own organizations that are now leading in the evaluation space. These are all examples that challenge the idea that it's only experience and training that determine the extent to which you will grow in your career. The idea that you need 10 years of experience to grow in your evaluation career is one of the most common limiting beliefs that I see in the clients that I support in my coaching practice. And I've always been curious about where it's coming from. One of the things that shapes this story is that many international organizations and UN-related agencies frame senior positions in terms of requiring 8 to 10 or even more years of experience in the field. An important thing that people should consider is that job requirements are a description of hiring patterns, but they're not universal rules. Even within these organizations, you can find people with less years of experience that are having bigger impact in senior positions. Another thing to consider is that what counts towards those years of experience really depends on how you're framing your experience. And lastly, these are not the only organizations where evaluators work. One of the ironies is that these same organizations also contract evaluation firms, where you can find evaluators with various years of experience doing work across different seniority levels. So while this might be true in certain organizations, it's definitely not the rule across our entire sector. And I think it's also very important to keep in mind that even if you hit that mark, you're not necessarily going to see a specific growth or promotion or these specific opportunities being available to you, especially if you don't have a strong career strategy. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you a little bit about my career journey and what are the key things that I think accelerated my growth. I'm going to reflect on common mistakes that I see my clients make in these areas and also share with you some reflections on how you can adapt them and incorporate them into your career to see a similar growth. I'm going to start with sharing a recap of what my career has been and how I ended up becoming an evaluator. I am a strong believer that everyone's career path is unique. And what has worked or happened to me isn't necessarily going to apply to other people. So understanding my context is important. I went to school in Canada and got a master's degree of science, really focused on economics and quantitative research, but I had never heard about evaluation as a field. In my first job after school, I was surrounded by economists, and I realized that economics wasn't really for me. So I transitioned into a role where I was doing institutional research for a program that was working with immigrants and newcomers to Canada. It was in this program that my boss assigned me developing an evaluation framework for the entire program. And this was the first time that I heard about evaluation. I took a course from the Canadian Evaluation Society called Essential Skills Training that they still have to this day. And during that course, I realized that evaluation was what I've been looking for in terms of a career. And I decided in that moment that I was going to become an evaluator and that I was going to work towards the credential designation of the Canadian Evaluation Society. As I started mapping how to get to that goal, I realized that I needed to get into a job where I would be more surrounded by evaluators and have more opportunities to work in evaluation projects. And I was able to land what I thought was my dream job in evaluation. I moved cities, packed my things, took a pay cut, only to realize that the dream job was not a dream after all. I was underpaid, I was undervalued, and I was still trying to figure out how to get all the competencies that I needed to become a competent evaluator and get my designation. And once I overcame the impact that that job experience had on my own confidence, I ended up landing a job in my current organization where not only I was able to develop more my competencies and apply and get the credentialed evaluator designation, but I was also able to grow into the position where I am right now. One thing that I think is important for all of you to know is that this growth was not an accident, but it also wasn't intentional. I didn't have this vision of becoming a manager. In fact, I was quite hesitant to step into a management position. When I reflect back on my journey and all the opportunities that I've had, I can trace back every opportunity to different actions that I took along the way. And this is what I call planned happenstance. If you're interested in learning more about what planned happenstance is, I have a whole episode talking about it. So I definitely recommend checking it out. But it's this idea that the opportunities that we have in our career are not accidents. They're not luck. They're a result of the intentional actions that we take, our curiosity, our perseverance, our initiative. In this episode, I want to share with you what I think are the most significant actions and things that I have been part of my journey, because I strongly believe that if I was able to do this, you can totally do it as well. So let's get started with the 6 strategies that I think accelerated my career. The first one is confidence in my competencies. The field of evaluation is complex and it's always evolving. One of the very first things that I realized when I finished the essential skills training and I looked at the evaluation competencies and what it would take me to become a credentialed evaluator was realizing there were so many things that I needed to learn. It wasn't just developing additional skills that I didn't have in my toolbox. It was also catching up on all of the methods and approaches and ways of doing evaluation that I had never been exposed to. And in addition to that, it was gaining experience on things like managing budgets, developing evaluation plans, and all of these things that I hadn't done. It was quite overwhelming. And I think that's something we need to acknowledge more often, is that our field requires us to develop many, many competencies and skills. What I did early on in my journey and what I still do today is focus on the strengths that I have. I don't overlook the competencies that I need to develop. In fact, that was foundational to my career development plan. But I don't discount what I can offer into any opportunity, job, volunteer experience, because I focus on what I do have and my potential to develop additional competence. This is something that I have done throughout my career. When I applied to work in the organization where I found out about evaluation in the very first place, I applied for a position that was looking for someone with experience working with immigrants. I didn't have that experience, but what I did have was lived experience as an immigrant, and I also had a couple volunteer experiences supporting other immigrants. So I heavily focused on this and leveraged on this during my application to show how, even though I didn't have that working experience or I hadn't studied and done like a social work degree, I could still do the job and I was able to learn whatever I was missing and do a good job. I also remember that during the interview for that position, it was a series of different phases for the application process. And the final one was facilitating a real focus group with instructors of the program. And at this point, I had never facilitated like an actual formal focus group before. My master's program was very quantitatively focused, but I hadn't had that much experience with qualitative methods. But it didn't matter what I did. I was resourceful. I connected with people that I knew had experience doing qualitative research. I asked for tips. And I actually ended up facilitating a very amazing participatory focus group with instructors that was very fun and enjoyable. We used stickers, we had priority exercises. It was great. And I think this mentality of focusing on not only like what you have, but also what you're able to learn even through the interview process can really be a game changer, especially when you're considering putting yourself out there for other positions. One common mistake that I see people making when it comes to their competencies is over focusing on the things that they lack and even leading conversations with them. So going into a conversation and saying things like, well, I don't have experience in X, Y, Z. The problem is that if you over focus on the competencies that you don't have, you're going to constantly feel behind, especially because there's always more new things to learn. One of the things that I like to challenge my clients to do to really internalize it is to think about the number of evaluation gurus. I don't know if you're not familiar with the term. I don't necessarily like it, but it's the reality is that many people call certain people in evaluation the gurus. So anyways, I asked them to think about how many evaluation gurus nowadays are spending hours and hours learning about how to integrate artificial intelligence in evaluation. This is just the reality of our field. So what is important to do is to find a healthy balance between acknowledging the areas that you still need to develop, but being very confident in the value that you have to offer. Being confident and not letting those lacking competencies stop you from taking action and putting yourself out there for opportunities that could be game changers in your career. The second strategy that helped me grow in my career was staying loyal to my own definition of success. When I landed my dream evaluation job, or what I thought was my dream evaluation job, I was actually employed in an organization that I really admired, and I was doing very amazing work. Like, I was so engaged. I would dream of my data sets. Literally, that was my dream. Like the screen and my work and the flows of the complex service I was developing. I was so engaged in what I was doing. And at the same time, I had a clear idea of what I wanted out of my career in my life. I knew that I wanted to feel properly compensated, and I wanted to be recognized for the impact I was having in my organization. And I also knew that I wanted a compensation that didn't just allow me to cover my costs, but allowed me to meet my financial goals around saving for retirement. And these are not things that I was having in this organization. When I started having conversations with people around this, with my colleagues, I faced a little bit of judgment. Very well intentioned, but judgment nonetheless. It was like this idea of like, how could I want more compensation when I work in the nonprofit sector and I'm like doing this type of work where that shouldn't be the driver. And I personally don't agree with that idea. I think you can want to do that good work and also have certain goals that you shouldn't sacrifice on. Another aspect of that experience where I wasn't aligned with my definition of success was that the organization I was in didn't have enough integrity, and values are very important for me. Integrity is one of my most important values. And what it looks like for me is that you do what you say you're going to do. You act in alignment with what you say is important for you. In this organization, the compensation and career progression decisions were not transparent. And I found that to be in misalignment with how the organization portrayed itself and also what it would tell other organizations that we were supporting as evaluators to do and what practices to put in place to support their own workers and employment satisfaction. I think making the difficult decision of leaving an organization where I was doing work that I really loved with people that I really liked and admired to be in alignment and be loyal with my definition of success, in spite of what other people were telling me and their definitions of success kind of getting in the way and modeling things for me. That was very important and has guided many career decisions that I've made ever since. Common pitfalls that I see people making when it comes to aligning with their definition of success include letting others' definition of success dictate their decisions, even when it doesn't feel right. I often see this happening with the pressure to pursue a PhD, because some people consider that to be a requirement or part of what success looks like. And I see many evaluators feeling pressured to follow that path, even when it's not right for them. I also see people accepting corporate ladders or waiting way too long for corporate ladders that are not working for them. I see people chasing titles over chasing organizations that are aligned with their values or organizations that allow them to do the work that they're truly passionate about. And I also see some people doing things to have a certain reputation thereafter that is not fully aligned with the type of evaluator and person that they want to be. One important lesson that my career trajectory has taught me is that there's no one definition of success in evaluation. Your definition of success is going to be very unique to your life circumstances, your priorities, what you want out of your life, and what you want your career to look like. And having clarity on what success looks like for you can really help you make career decisions that are aligned with that. The third strategy I'm going to talk about is having a strong career vision. Navigating your career without an objective is the same thing as a program that you're evaluating with no objectives. Even if you have the best inputs, the best intentions, the most amazing activity, not having clear objectives can lead to wasted resources. It can lead to not really knowing what to prioritize when things come up because you don't know what you're trying to achieve and what's going to contribute to the most. And it can also make it hard to assess whether you are having progress or not. The same exact things happened in our careers. When I look back at my career, the moment of most intense growth was when I was working towards the credentialed evaluator designation. I had such a clear career goal for me, and it really helped me filter out all of the different things that I could have learned, professional development activities. It also even guided which projects I got involved in at work when I had the option to do so, because I knew what were the things that I needed to develop to become a credentialed evaluator. And having this type of clarity is very important because we have limited time in our lives. We have limited time and there's so many options, especially nowadays out there. There's so many trainings, podcasts, papers, different types of projects, different tools and techniques that you can learn. The amount is just overwhelming. When you don't have a clear career vision, you can start getting engaged with everything and nothing at the same time. A common consequence of not having a clear career vision is getting distracted with shiny stars. This is a term that a coach of mine used once to describe these ideas or things that we come across in our career that look interesting and we think we want to pursue, but that are not really aligned with our main goals. And I've been the victim as well of falling for shiny stars. During COVID, even as I was working through my credentialed evaluator designation, and my plan to get there, I started seeing and being kind of more aware of the opportunities within data science. And data science became this shiny star for me. And it was a shiny star that actually costed me quite a lot of time and money. I took 2 different trainings on data science, and I applied for a master's program in data science that I was not accepted to. But all of that costed money and many, many hours. One of the things that happens when you have shiny stars is that you think you're interested in something, so you invest time and you try to learn something, but all of your actions in your career are not necessarily aligned with that because that's not a goal you're working towards necessarily, or you're working at multiple goals at the same time. What happened with me in data science is that, yes, I was investing this time in trying to learn this skill, but I wasn't taking action outside of that learning to actually pursue opportunities to put those skills into practice. So I never fully developed the skill. I was equally interested in growing my evaluation experience, in working with different community organizations, in other aspects of the evaluation process. So I never got the chance to really develop those skills and be enough of a really good candidate for this very competitive program. Now, looking back, I can't say like, oh my God, that was all a waste of everything. Like I haven't used any of these skills. As a manager, because I have those skills, I've been able to lead projects that use topic modeling, that use natural language processing, and be more ready to now upskill in terms of artificial intelligence. However, If I had had a clearer vision of what I wanted my career to be, which includes leading evaluation teams, I could have had the same amount of experience and understanding of data science that I have now in a much cheaper and in a much faster way. And that's the thing with shiny stars. So the thing that I've learned throughout my career is that when you have a vision, it accelerates your growth because it helps you optimize what you're learning, what you're engaging in with the limited amount of time you have. And it makes sure that that extra effort you're putting in to learn, to try different things, to develop different skills has a bigger impact on your actual growth and who you are as an evaluator. The next thing I'm going to talk about that has helped me in my career is taking strategic action. Now, this one is pretty broad, but it's just the idea and recognizing that the opportunities don't automatically go to those that are most experienced, to those that are the best evaluators, to those that have the strongest technical skills. Absolutely no. They go to the people that make their work known, that position themselves effectively, and that are remembered when opportunities come up. And all of this requires taking strategic action throughout your career, taking initiative to make things happen rather than waiting for opportunities to land magically on your lap. And strategic action looks like many, many different things. In my program, The Evaluator's Edge, I give my clients 18 different specific strategic actions made for evaluators. So there's many options within this, but I think the ones that I see most people failing to do are two. First is not communicating what they want. I see so many people shying away from telling others that they're looking for another position, from posting on LinkedIn that they want to grow their consultancy company and they're looking for clients until they have the perfect website, the perfect client package, until they have all these things sorted out. I know people that are interested in starting podcasts, but they don't want to talk about it until they have the perfect artwork, which is not required, or they have all these amazing episodes lined up and perfectly edited, etc., etc., etc. If people don't know what you're doing, they simply won't think of you when opportunities come up. If people don't know you're working on a podcast, then they just won't know that there's a podcast that they should be keeping an eye out to listen to. If people don't know that you're offering consulting services, then they will not think of you when there's an amazing project that you would be perfect for. That's just how it works. The second mistake that I see gets in the way of people taking strategic action is overcomplicating things to the point where they're not taking action because they're focusing on a problem for tomorrow. This can look like seeing a job that they really, really like that aligns with kind of their ideal career job, but it's in a different location, or it has a qualification about, I don't know, needing a driver's license when you don't know how to drive, or needing to be in the office even though are looking for a hybrid work environment. And instead of taking the action to put yourself out there and have the option of even being considered for this job, they overanalyze all of these little things that are not yet a problem. Like they're not yet a problem until you actually have an offer. But they spend time thinking and overanalyzing this. And I'm 100%, I've been there, right? Thinking of all these scenarios and could you make this work and could you not make this work, even though that's a problem for tomorrow. And instead of using all of that energy and time to take action, put their name forward so that they can be considered and even have the luxury of thinking through some of these challenges and questions. I see this happening when people are looking at jobs, but also when they're looking at other types of opportunities. I think people equate applying for something or putting their name forward for something to committing to doing that thing, even though they're different things. One of the most transformative experiences I've had in my career is participating as a host organization in the Evaluation Capacity Case Challenge. And I like to tell the story of how I even ended up there because it's a good example of how I have taken initiative and strategic action to get these amazing opportunities. When I saw the application out for the Evaluation Capacity Case Challenge on LinkedIn, I just clicked on the link and I was reading and I thought it was interesting and I started writing the application. I shared information about my current role, the challenges that I was facing, what I would like evaluation capacity to be like. I didn't share any private information with my organization. I was just sharing my reflections as an evaluation leader when it comes to evaluation capacity building, what I have achieved, and what I would like to see in my team. I didn't really overthink it. I just applied, I submitted the form, and then I was very lucky to be selected. What I could have done, and what I've seen many people do instead, is I could have seen the form And I could have been like, this sounds interesting, but I should first ask my manager. I should ask my manager if I can apply to this program that I don't fully understand because it's a pretty new program. I like kind of know what it is, but not fully. I don't know what is involved. I don't know how much time commitment it'll be. I don't know what resources are going to be provided, but I can try to ask them with all of this uncertainty and clarity and see if they would support me applying for these organs. Like, it's already so complicated that you're either going to lose the momentum and the motivation to actually do it. And two, there's so much unclarity and complexity around it already that if your manager has a lot on their plate, they're probably going to be like, no, like, I don't even know what is it. Or they're going to have a lot of questions that are going to kill your motivation. So learning how to not overcomplicate things, take action, reduce barriers, like really that's what it is. It's reducing barriers so that you can take more action and have more option. Not to say yes to all the opportunities, because you also want to balance and avoid being burnt out, but to have the option of having amazing opportunities that can get you closer faster towards your goals. So my tip around this topic of strategic action is take action. Don't be passive. Look for ways to reduce barriers for you taking action. And that includes sharing what you want and putting yourself out there without overcomplicating things so that you can have opportunities that will get you closer towards your goals. Okay, the fifth one is one that I really, really like, and it's reciprocal relationships. This is about shifting how we see people from like networking potential or like this person's popular and well known, I should connect with them, or this person can help me in my career, to just navigating your career in a way that you're cultivating reciprocity, that you're helping others, you're creating relationships, not only when you need support, but just as a way of being and navigating your career. There's so much evidence around how giving helps your mental health and your physical health. Like there's actual evidence that shows that if you help others, you're going to be happier and you're going to be healthier. I strongly believe that building reciprocal relationships increases your career satisfaction. It just makes being an evaluator more fun because you start developing relationships and caring for people and being connected in a way that otherwise you probably are going to have challenges doing. But in addition to this, reciprocal relationships can be a boost in your career. When you have relationships with people, they start understanding who you are as an evaluator, what you're looking for, who you are as a person, and the value that you have to offer. And this will make it easier for them to think of you when there's opportunities that align with what you're looking for. It's also a great way of being active in your job search and create internal advocates in organizations that are going to vouch for you when there's opportunities that come up there. I want to tell two stories, although I have so many, but I want to tell two stories about reciprocal relationship to just give you an example of what this looks like, because it doesn't have to be this like grandiose thing that you do. It's just in like the little ways in which you show up for people. I was trying to map out like transformative moments in my career and try to like trace back like how did that ended up happening? What was the initial action that made this possible? And one of them was like being connected with Eval Youth. How I got connected with Eval Youth was through a colleague that mentioned a mailing list called Peregrine that I think doesn't exist anymore. When I was asking her for like, how can I grow in my evaluation career? Like I'm having issues finding kind of resources and connections and getting involved in the community. And she suggested this mailing list. And she was my colleague, but she actually shared this. I think it was on a weekend. We were hanging out because we were friends. And how we ended up developing a relationship and becoming friends is quite interesting. On my first week of work, I met this colleague, and for some reason, we were just chatting at work, and she shared that she was going on a trip with her family and that she was looking for someone to take care of her cat. And I think she asked me if I would be available to go to her house and take care of her cat. I don't even like cats, but I said yes because I don't know. That's just how I am. I was like, sure, I'll take care of your cat. And I spent a few days in her house taking care of her cat. And I think when you like show up with certain generosity and like to help people out, it just creates a bond between people that is difficult or takes longer to develop otherwise. So I consider that the initial action that led me to find out about Eval Youth and become involved with Eval Youth. Another example that I love to share about how reciprocity has supported my career is how I was able to be part of the Better Evaluation Career Development page. If you haven't checked out that page and you're wondering how to get into evaluation, how to grow in your evaluation career, you will find the link on the episode notes. I'm a little biased, but I do think it's the most comprehensive resource to answer all of these questions regarding careers and evaluation. And I was actually contracted to help develop this page. But this wasn't an open application process. It was a closed opportunity because it was a very time-bound contract. They needed someone right away. And one of my evaluator friends that I really, really admire put my name forward. And the reason why they were able to do that was because we had connected through evaluators, we had collaborated in a few things. But outside of that, I put in the effort, and so did them, to develop a relationship throughout time. By the time that this opportunity came up, they knew me and they knew that I was interested in developing this passion for career development in evaluation. So they thought of me, and I was able to apply in this close process thanks to that referral. And this is just one example of how reciprocal relationships over time can help you attract opportunities that are perfect for you. What I see people often doing instead of building reciprocal relationships is reaching out to people, like sending DMs and emails, even using the best script ever, but just when they need support. I think sometimes this can work, especially if you're getting in touch with someone that is just genuinely generous and available and happy to help. I definitely think there's certain things you can do to increase the likelihood of this reach out being successful, but it's much more effective to build a relationship. Another mistake that I see people making is that even when they do have this connection with people that they are already in their network or new people that they're contacting for support, is they don't follow through, or they don't follow through in a genuine way. And I think this is an important missed opportunity of being reciprocal. If you meet with someone and they give you any sort of tip or any sort of guidance or just their time, following through and saying like, hey, I did this. Thank you so much. Like, you helped me understand this, or you helped me land this job, or you helped me learn about this, and now I implemented in a project and it was great. That can really make the difference from you just extracting from this person to you building a relationship, being thankful, and letting them know how they have been able to help you. To wrap up this fifth strategy, I just want to encourage you to look into how you can build reciprocal relationships, because it will not only help you in terms of attracting opportunities, but it will just genuinely make being an evaluator more enjoyable. The last strategic action that I want to share is having strong branding. Branding is about articulating who you are, what you do, and ensuring that people actually get that message so they can think of you when opportunities come up. Keeping professional branding is the same thing as conducting an amazing, extremely rigorous, high-quality evaluation, and then not sharing the findings in a report or slides or in any way that evaluation users can actually use them in their decision-making process. When I'm talking about strong branding for getting into my current position, I'm talking about the time before the evaluation couch and before I was active on LinkedIn as I am right now. Even back then, I had built strong branding, a lot of it thanks to my involvement with Evaluate. I co-founded Evaluate North America and I chaired it for 2 years. And that branding helped me make connections with people in the field, make myself known, and it also helped others think of me when they were working on things that involved emerging evaluators or even had job opportunities for emerging evaluators that they wanted me to amplify. But strong branding also applies to how you talk about who you are as an evaluator and what problems you can solve. Strong branding was key to me landing my position in my current organization, because I applied for a role in a health organization without having any background, both work and studies in healthcare. Strong branding was telling the story of who I am as an evaluator, really highlighting my transferable skills and explaining how, even without that health background, I could help the organization meet their needs and what they were looking for. There's 2 mistakes that I see people commonly make when it comes to their branding. The first one is equating strong branding to being present on social media. Branding is a lot more than whether you're posting or active on social media. It's also about who you are as an evaluator, how you communicate that, and how you package that to different audiences in order to help you land opportunities that you want. The second mistake that I see many people making is developing their brand around their title or the organization that they work with. Even leading introductions and conversations with, I am this title working at this organization. If there's something that we should have learned in 2025, is that positions and even whole units of evaluation are not permanent. So it's important for you to start developing your brand around who you are as an evaluator rather than where you're currently working. The key takeaways when it comes to branding is that branding is not the same as being active on social media, and that branding can really help you communicate how you can bring all of your experiences, all of your skills into any type of job to solve the problems that the organization is looking for. So to recap, the 6 strategies that I shared that I think helped me fast track my career include being confident in my competencies, being loyal to my definition of success, having a strong career vision, taking strategic action, building reciprocal relationships, and having a strong professional brand. When I was navigating my career journey, I was leveraging concepts and things that I had learned when I was working in the career center at my university for 3 years, definitely. But I didn't have this intentional plan of using all of these strategies. It happened naturally. And with more intention, I probably could have had even more opportunities or used my time more efficiently. And this is why I designed the type of training and resources that I wish were available when I was navigating this journey. My Own Your Edge Masterclass is happening next week, and registration is free. You can find the registration link in the episode notes. It'll be a 90-minute session, the first time that I ever go live, where I will share the 3-step framework that I use to help my clients build the evaluation career they deserve. And if you're interested in learning how you can apply these strategies and more career tools, I definitely suggest that you sign up. Thank you all.